The Broncos have their quarterback, their coach, just need a new owner. What do you mean there's a new lawsuit? We turn to the woman who's guided us through the pandemic for some perspective on what the new COVID variant is and is not. Let's just say don't change your weekend plans. Anusha Roy looks at why postpartum depression is both common and ignored. Your work to help the people of Ukraine has raised $300,000 in 3 days. And there is no bad reason to feel good.
It feels good that we were able to put that smile on their face.
So let's talk about Colorado's challenges and still leave here smiling. It can be done because this is next. Denver Broncos got a whole lot better with the addition of Russell Wilson. And likely they got more expensive too. Of course, teams for sale. And having a franchise quarterback in place is expected to boost that purchase price a bit. It's already going to be in the billions though. The family of the previous owner, the folks before Pat Bowlen, well, it turns out that they still want a piece of that sweet action. Marshall Zellinger explains their latest court challenge.
Before Pat Bowlen, there was Edgar Kaiser, and between the two, there was a deal. Kaiser would have right of first refusal if Bowlen ever sold the Broncos. Kaiser died in 2012. Bowlen died in 2019. In January, a Denver district judge ruled that the agreement between the two is no longer valid or enforceable, and that Kaiser's family does not get right of first refusal to buy the Broncos. They have now appealed that ruling to the Colorado Court of Appeals.
And we're talking about literally millions and millions of dollars at stake, so you can see why an appeal was filed.
9 News legal analyst Scott Robinson tells me this is not much ado about nothing. It could delay or create concern in the looming sale of the billions-dollar franchise.
Any prospective buyer would at least have to know about this litigation and take that into account. You'd hate to raise millions, if not billions of dollars to buy the Broncos, and then find out that your bid is worthless because there's a right of first refusal to someone else who then exercises that right.
A source close to the Broncos tells Broncos insider Mike Kliss this appeal was not unexpected and that the team's sale would continue. Part of the judge's ruling in January was that the Broncos have no obligation to provide notice of any intended sale.
I love tag teaming sports stories. Mike Kliss's Broncos source tells him dozens of prospective bidders have shown interest and that Broncos expect a new owner by late summer. Well, an appeals case could drag on. It won't even be until the end of April for the judges to have transcripts from the September trial, and then both sides in the appeals case have more than a month to file different parts of the case. It's a court process, Kyle, that would go on past a sale if the sale still happens within the timeline we're expecting.
I don't know the Kaiser family. I'm sure they're very lovely people, but some of this just screams nuisance lawsuit to me. Like you know, the Bolins are going to get so much money, maybe they'll just throw some over here to make us go away so they can get this done.
Sometimes what we think of lawsuits in certain cases, this might be that where if you make enough noise, we're going to make you go away, here's some cash. But there was an agreement. Just because one court said it's no longer valid doesn't mean a higher court won't see it differently.
There's a process. They're absolutely entitled to the process, just as Broncos fans are entitled to enjoy Russell Wilson and hope in the city once again. Marshall, thank you. So at this point, the smartest folks on this issue tell us there is no reason for additional concern about the new COVID variant that's circulating in Denver. It's the one seen in Europe, the one that's being called stealth Omicron. Public health leaders here are pretty copacetic because they think 90% of the population in Colorado is protected, either through vaccination or through natural immunity from prior infection. Dr. Michelle Barron at UC Health, our go-to person on infectious diseases, says we need to be clear, though. There's no guarantee that future variants will continue to kind of step down in severity.
It's not different than what we're used to with flu, right? Some years it's a really bad flu year, and some years nobody even really talks about the flu. And so I think we're going to see that same trend with COVID-19, where 1 year or 1 month, it may be something that we're all talking about, and other months we may not talk about it at all because it causes such mild symptoms that most people don't really notice it.
You know, we've come to know Dr. Barron as such a calm constant since the start of the pandemic, always informed, never alarmist. 2 years since our lives really changed, we asked her to look back if there's anything that she would have done differently in March of 2020, knowing what we know now.
I remember having those conversations right before St. Patrick's Day about whether or not we should close everything down and really do our best to try and limit the transmission. And I think we obviously had no idea what we were in for. with the cycles and the roller coaster of COVID. It's like, I think it still, at that time, with the information we knew, it was probably a good decision. Now, in hindsight, looking back, would we have made that same decision knowing the impact this would have economically on mental health, on, you know, everybody's sort of just ability to function in society? And maybe we would do it different.
So we're going to keep an eye out over the next few weeks to see if the new variant has any kind of impact on our declining case counts and our declining positivity rate. That's positivity. 2.6% of COVID tests done in the state over the last 7 days have come back positive. Lowest that we have seen since before the last 4th of July. Things have really calmed down in our hospitals to the point that the state is now reporting hospital bed usage and ICU bed usage on a weekly basis as opposed to every day. 85% of ICU beds have a patient in them this week. It's the lowest that number's been since August. There are more than 200 open ICU beds statewide if they're needed. Our colleague Anusha Roy's honest and courageous words last night about her postpartum depression led many of you to share stories about how your depression went undiagnosed. Anusha's back tonight to look at why such a common challenge remains in the shadows.
Your stories simultaneously show solidarity and isolation. A viewer wrote how she had postpartum depression but didn't realize it until almost 20 years later, and how in the 1980s no one talked about this, not even your doctor, and family didn't understand. Another mom wrote, I went through it too and was admitted. The journey was scary and difficult, and how talking about it will remove stigma. But for something as common as postpartum depression, why has it not been brought out into the open?
To a large extent, mental illness has been overlooked.
Dr. Patricia Westmoreland also says the most extreme but very rare cases started getting attention without any context.
Many moms were suffering silently.
And that stopped a lot of people from speaking up.
People didn't want their babies taken away. They didn't want family over-involved.
And it wasn't until the 2000s when more people started talking, including celebrities, that the conversation opened up. But getting the help in Colorado has a long way to go.
There's no official fellowship that is ABPN accredited in terms of being a reproductive psychiatrist, but hopefully one day there will be. But there are a number of training centers in the country.
My sister Robin, after she had delivered her first and only child, she became very depressed and she couldn't get out of bed and she couldn't eat. And we didn't know what to do. So we, as a family, jumped into action.
Democratic Senator Hawkes Lewis is running a bill now to integrate physical and mental health care.
Would you like to talk with this person today?
It's not a new idea in Colorado, but keeps hitting roadblocks.
Our healthcare system has been built upon segmenting care.
She's talking about separating out the physical health care from the mental health care versus bringing it all under one roof. This time around, though, the senator is saying that there are already federal dollars in the millions in Colorado, but that they are still trying to decide how to use it. So what she's really talking about is this idea that if you go to your primary care doctor, and if you're talking to your primary care doctor and they're saying, hey, maybe you need some behavioral health help as well, how do you get it so that there's a therapist in the same building, all under the same roof, versus saying, hey, you have to go to this other clinic, and then there's an appointment in 2 weeks, and then you lose a lot of people along the way. So a lot of places already doing it, but don't necessarily have the support or the funding to keep expanding that in Colorado.
I know your family's experience was kind of similar to ours. I remember when our girls were born, it felt like things had come a long way because our docs talked to my wife and I about, like, these are the kind of feelings that are going to be normal if it lasts this long or you feel this way. You guys really need to take that seriously.
Yeah, we had that same exact conversation, and I remember the doctor turning specifically to my husband and saying, you need to watch for these top 3 things. If these are happening, then you need to call us right away. And that's what happened about a month after my son was born. And they streamlined it. They made it really easy for us to find help, which was a total game changer. And, you know, what it also brought up, and something I've been thinking a lot about, is, you know, what about partners? What about the dads and other people and family members, you know, making sure they're checking in on their mental health as well, because it's a different kind of adjustment, but a big adjustment for them as well.
Well, if nothing else, you're helping people realize this is something that we can talk about, that we can deal with.
Yes.
But you can't deal with it without talking about it.
Exactly. Bring it out in the open.
Anusha, thank you. There are pallets of medical supplies being collected in Centennial right now, prepared to go out to Ukraine in the coming days. And you are directly helping to make those humanitarian missions happen. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign is one of the largest that you have ever put together. You've raised $300,000 in 3 days. I'm going to give you a look inside Project Cure's warehouse. Your donations will help collect medical supplies and trauma medicine equipment and then help pay for their transportation to Ukraine. There are 4 shipments leaving this week. If you want to get in on this overwhelming show of support from Colorado to Ukraine, all you need to do is scan the QR code on your screen or text the word thanks to 303-871-1491. We know from doing this again and again that enough people, even just giving $5, can make a tremendous impact in our state and now our world. The folks at Project Cure have sent medical supplies to areas of need around the globe for decades. They tell me they are just amazed by your support. The Marshall Fire cleanup process has cleared a legal hurdle. It's your Friday good news from a different kind of spring break.
Just seeing them make friends and seeing them leave that much more confident. It's so beautiful.
And there are Denver Zoo animals that have winter homes. They're snowbirds, but underwater. That's next. Families in Louisville and Superior are able to move forward a bit with the cleanup from the Marshall Fire. Judge ruled today that Boulder County can go ahead and sign a contract to start the debris removal. A group backed by the conservative talk radio host and former FEMA Administrator Michael Brown had sued the county over its process for picking that contractor. The county says it's going to move forward at this point, have that contract signed next Tuesday, have cleanup begin on March 28th. The lawsuit's still not resolved. Judge hasn't ruled on whether Boulder County broke the state's open meetings law in how they did the bid process. They'll have a hearing on that at the end of the month. You sent in some really smart questions following up on Marshall Zellinger's story yesterday about gasoline octanes in Colorado. 85 octanes unique to high altitude areas. Because of our thinner air, 85 here is like 87 at sea level. And the 85 gas here is priced like 87 everywhere else. A couple of you asked whether 87 grade, so like mid-grade here, acts like 91 or premium at sea level. We checked back in with John Jachura with the Colorado School of Mines, and he said he wouldn't say that like 87 octane in Colorado was going to act like premium. More like mid-grade, which at sea level is 89 octane. Some of you also asked if it's 85 is better for emissions in the environment. John said he wasn't aware of any environmental advantage to the 85.
So nice to have the sunshine and a lot of melting happening today. The view across downtown Denver and beyond, beautiful on this Friday evening. Not a ton going on for us tonight. Into early tomorrow morning, we'll be greeted with plenty of sunshine. And then by about 5, 6 o'clock, we'll be watching just a few high-level clouds kind of streaming in. Otherwise, a beautiful start to the weekend. Temperatures climbing into the mid to upper 50s for us around the metro area. Some 60s for your Saturday off to the eastern plains, 30s and 40s, and a little bit of that fresh powder, maybe still up into the high country. High pressure is around, but only for about 48 hours as we await this next storm that arrives on Monday. It brings us some snow and some really gusty winds too. We could even see blizzard conditions off to the eastern plains. Cooler temperatures too with that snow. That moves out and the sunshine and 60s move in by next Friday.
So while you're dreaming about spring break or any vacations you've got coming up, you should know that the Denver Zoo stingrays and sharks have a better vacation plan than either of us. We didn't know this until today when the Denver Zoo announced that the stingrays and sharks are back at the zoo. And we're like, what do you mean back? Well, the Stingray Cove reopened today after their vacation because the stingrays and sharks get to winter down in Florida every year. They're kept at a facility down there roughly like November through February just because it's a more temperate climate, I guess. You wouldn't think it would matter indoors, but apparently it does. Then they're driven back here from Florida in a semi-truck that's filled with specially designed holding tanks. You're passing a truck on the highway, it's full of sharks. Then they're given like a full week to kind of settle back into Stingray Cove before the people are allowed back in to see them.
Oh my goodness, you did it!
Your Friday good news doesn't take spring break, it just goes to camp. And something that's not horrible. Next. I heard the opening bars. I thought that was going to be Desperado. It's Friday when we go out to ask our favorite question. What's your good news? It always kind of reorients our focus from whatever we might think is important in life to what you tell us is important in your life. Therapies for Hope is a Denver-based nonprofit that serves children with developmental disabilities, particularly kids from underserved communities. Today was the last day of their spring break camp, where they are happy to welcome us to talk some good news.
Oh, try one more time. You almost have it, Marcos. Yes! Good job. Just seeing them make friends and seeing them leave that much more confident. It's so beautiful. Okay, ready? Here, you try. Tight. So it's not moving. Then turn. Yes.
I think it's great news that we're here and we're helping these families.
So maybe turn this way. See if that works.
It's working.
It's working.
My good news is seeing the amazing progress from just 1 week with a group of kids and how much they make change and how much they want to grow and progress in just 5 days.
Right, close it.
I feel proud, I feel excited, I feel very emotional. I'm really trying to hold it in right now.
Come on, Renee.
I think what I love,
High five.
I love a child smiling and getting excited about doing something for themselves for the first time.
I can do this.
You can do this. Good.
I go over here.
Keep going.
I can do this. I will not stop. I will not stop.
Our good news today, so I've been working with Marcos and we've been working on strengthening his fingers and his confidence too, to take care of himself and do daily tasks. Almost there. I like how you're not giving up. I think maybe one more. I think it's a dream job. Yeah! And this camp has really given us all an opportunity.
Goodness, you did it!
To
Are your hands tired?
fall in love with our jobs again too.
I did it.
You did it! Yay! And so what can you do to your
Daily dose of joy right there. With the right imagination, it's summertime around here, even with snow on the ground. It's our something that isn't horrible to end the week, along with your feedback next. Young Coloradans finding a way to pretend it's summer even when there's snow on the ground? There's something that's not horrible. When you get half a foot of snow, it's time for some snow angels. But Sarah's 13-year-old son Luke's clearly thinking about warmer days ahead. Up at their house in Pine Junction, he threw on the t-shirt, the shorts, and the flip-flops and did some snow angels. And then there you go. Catch some sun on the backside. Noah's daughter Meredith is determined to enjoy the sunshine no matter what. Got the blankets and the towels and getting a nice little back of the arm tan there at their house in Centennial. Surrounded by snow, but I'm guessing the bricks warmed up nicely on a day like today. Send us anything that isn't horrible, because this is the news. The horrible stuff will find us. Next at 9news.com's the email, or use the hashtag HeyNext. Let's talk about the good that our friend Anusha Roy is doing in our community this week. Feedback from Jan, who writes, Anusha has just saved lives. I never experienced postpartum depression, but I've been there for close friends who have. Mary writes, let's continue to move postpartum to light. It will save lives. I know personally. A note from Paul Brown, who says, thank you for discussing mental health in such a public way. The light you brought to the subject can serve as a beacon to others. There's so much apprehension about talking about some of these topics. Take somebody with the courage of Anusha to say, no, let's have that discussion. And look at what's happened in the last couple of days. See you next time.